title of our topic for today is about the particle nature of matter. Hi there! Today, we will tackle topics on solids. Example is an ice cream. Liquid. Example is water. And gases. Based on the particle nature of matter. So, let's get started. When you compare a pen, a laptop, and a smartphone, surely you will say that laptop is the heaviest among the three objects, while the pen seems to be the lightest. On the other hand, the smartphone may not as heavy as the laptop, but it is not as light as the pen. What does this indicate? It means that objects around us may be light or heavy, or simply let us put that these things have mass. Mass measures the amount of matter the object has, while volume measures the space occupied by an object. The sample object in the pictures show that they occupy space, while volume is the measure of the space occupied by an object. So, what do we call this object that has mass and volume? We call that as matter. Again, matter defined as anything that occupies space and has mass. Think of the water inside the bathtub. What do you notice? Do you think that water occupies space inside the bathtub? Yes, you are correct. Water, just like any other object, it can occupy space. This is called as volume, which is the space occupied by an object. How about the air inside the balloons? Does it have mass? Class, does it occupy space? The air placed inside the balloon occupies space. Thus, we are able to inflate balloons. Air also adds mass to the balloons. Hence, the air inside the balloons are considered as matter. How about heat and light? Do they have mass? Class, tandaan mabuti. Itong tanong na to, do they occupy space? Heat is an energy in transit, and light is a form of energy. They do not have mass, and they do not occupy space. So, they are not considered as matter. Variety in matter can be traced in the nature of the particle composing them. One example of matter is water. Water is a substance we encounter every day. The icebergs, the ocean water, and the vapor in the sky are all examples of water, or they are all considered as water, but they are on different states. How about sound? Class, let us see. Do they have mass? Do they occupy space? The answer is no. Sound do not have mass and they do not occupy space. So, they are not considered as matter. who figured out that all matter is composed of tiny particles called an atom. Class, listen. It was the Greek philosopher Leucippus and Democritus at about 5th BC, who had an idea that all matter is consistent of very small uncountable particles called atomos, and later on known as atom. All forms of matter are made up of very tiny particles that are in a constant random motion. Scientists call these characteristics as particulate nature of matter. After more than 200,000 years, the ancient philosopher idea about atoms became a theory when John Dalton put together many observations and results of several experiments done by other scientists and formulate the atomic theory. Every single thing in the universe, visible or not, is matter. Matter is composed of tiny particles called an atom. In the recent times, Greek philosophers believe that matter is made up of very small particles that your eyes cannot see. Democritus is a disciple of Leucippus, believed that any types of matter can be divided and subdivided further until it reaches a point where it is already indivisible, or it cannot be cut further into smaller pieces. The unit of the size of an atom in which length is equal to 1/10 millionth in a millimeter is called an angstrom. Early scientists attempted to explain the compositions, the behavior of matter through molecular theory of matter that has the following assumptions. Number one, all matter is made up of very small particles called molecules. Second, there are spaces between molecules. Third, molecules are constantly moving. And fourth, molecules attract one another. This theory was later on improved to the course of time and named as kinetic molecular theory on matter. A molecule is a particle consisting of two or more atoms combined together in a specific arrangement. It is also electrically neutral particles. The smallest particle of an element or compound that can exist independently. For example, the molecules of water consisting of oxygen atom and hydrogen atoms. Atoms of the same element can also be combined to form a molecule. For example, Oxygen in the air consists of oxygen molecules, which are made up of oxygen atoms. Going back to our previous example, we said that the iceberg, ocean water, and the vapor in the sky are all examples of water. So, why they look like very different from each other? These observed differences in the water originate from the nature of water particles. The particle theory of matter describes that pieces of matter at the microscopic level. It also explains the differences in the properties of solid, liquids, and gases. It explains the changes of pieces of matter. In solid, the particles are packed closely together and vibrate a little in place but in fixed position. The particles are held together by strong forces and have definite shape and volume. It is also incompressible. Let's take, for example, the air inside the balloons. Air inside the balloons, the particles of air inside the balloons are in constant motion and far apart from each other. They are considered as gas since their particles can move in any space available. When you inflate or deflate a balloon, its shape changes. The shape changes because the air is a gas. Gas is a state of matter that has no definite shape or volume. The particles of gas can move very quick and fast. Also, they have low attractions between particles of a gas than between particles of the same element in the solid or liquid state. The particles of water are closer to one another than the gas particles. They are in constant motion. Water in a glass is considered as liquid, and all liquid particles can move fast enough to overcome some of the attraction between them. Also, the attraction between their particles are stronger than those in gases. Liquids do not have a definite shape. It follows the shape of the containers. It also takes the shape of the containers. Slide past one another, but they stay together. Liquids have a unique characteristics. A special property is known as surface tension. It is a force that acts on the particles at the surface of a liquid. And also, it causes some liquid to form spiri- spherical drops like the beads of water. Another special characteristics or properties of liquid is viscosity, a liquid's resistance to flow. The stronger the attractions between the particles of a liquid, the more viscous the liquid is. For example, if we drop a pebble on water, honey, and oil, pebble drops fastest on water, second on honey, and last on oil, because oil is the most viscous liquid among the three, and water is the least. Now, let's wrap things up. Matter is made up of tiny particles called an atoms. An atom are the smallest particles of matter. Well, molecules are the atoms bonded together. The state of matter are the physical form in which a substance can exist. Shape is the external form or appearance of an object, while volume is the measure of how much space an object takes up. The surface tension is a force that acts on the particles at a surface or at the surface of a liquid, while viscosity is a liquid's resistance to flow. Now, for the comparison between the three states of matter, which is solid, liquids, and gases, always remember that solid retains a fixed volume and shapes. Liquids follow the shape of the containers which it occupies. And gases follows the shape and volume of its container. Another one, the particles of solid are locked into place, while liquids, the particles can slide past one another. And gases, the particles can move fast between one another. And class, always remember that solids are not compressible. Liquids are also not compressible. Gases are compressible. And solid also unnoticeable space between particles. Liquids has little free space between particles, and for gases, it has a lot of free space between particles. And lastly, solid does not flow. Liquid, it can flow easily. And also gases. Do you have any questions about our lesson, class? If you do not have any questions, learning buddies, always remember to keep your minds busy. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and God bless.